King Uldrau took his spear and lunged at the enemy. He pierced his enemy with his spear, making a large hole in his chest, from which a lot of blood spurted out. Then he withdrew the bloody spear and cut off his enemy's head. He displayed it as if it were a trophy and exclaimed, "From now on, for every drop of our blood that is spilled, we will make them pay in kind. We will not tolerate any more persecution of our people."
The words were steeped in violence and retribution, painting a stark contrast to the gentle rhythm of Henry's heartbeat under my ear. I opened my eyes to find him perched beside me, his face shadowed by the dim light, absorbed in the old tale. "Henry, what kind of story is that?" Henry's gaze flickered towards me, a hint of surprise dancing in his eyes, as if he'd forgotten my presence.
"Ah, Bronwyn, you're awake. I was reading an old tale from my kingdom's history."
I propped myself up on my elbows, slightly unsettled by the choice of his narrative. It sounds more like a battle cry than a bedtime story.
"It is a tale of courage and vengeance, a reminder of our past struggles and victories. Our child needs to know the strength of their lineage."
But surely there are other ways to teach strength and courage that don't involve bloodshed and war. Henry closed the book, his expression softening as he turned to me.
"You may be right. Perhaps stories of hope and unity would be more fitting for our child. I just wanted them to know the resilience of our people."
They will, through us. We'll teach them with love and wisdom, not just through tales of old. Henry smiled, his eyes reflecting a tender resolve. I couldn't help but frown, perplexed. Why would Henry choose such a book to read near my belly, where our unborn child lay?
"My precious child, you must have muscles and strong bones. It is better to have long arms to fight well."
Henry seemed to tense up, clutching the book close to his chest, as though guarding a precious secret. "What are you doing?" Despite his efforts, the book's title peeked out from between his arms, revealing itself to me. The King of War. Uldrau's war memoirs.
Duke Elegy's departure left a heavy air in the chamber. Alone, Aldrich gazed upon the scattered papers strewn across his desk, the tangible evidence of Rose's unfathomable actions. They were copies of the documents that bound Elisaria to a staggering debt and a perilous agreement over the port. Aldrich sighed deeply, the weight of the situation pressing down on him. The amount of money Rose had borrowed was astronomical, a figure that made him curse under his breath. Yet, despite its enormity, Aldrich knew he could settle the debt with his personal wealth, sparing Elisaria's coffers. But the matter of the port was a different beast entirely. The idea of simply relinquishing control over such a strategic asset was ludicrous. However, refusing the demand would not come without its complications. To deny Duke Elegy's claim, Aldrich must prove Rose's unfitness as queen, thus invalidating the agreement. He could also argue on other grounds, Rose's lack of understanding due to her upbringing, Duke Elegy's notorious reputation, and the circumstances under which Rose assumed her role. I'm acutely aware that Duke Elegy will not let the matter rest. He would likely seek arbitration from the Wall Continental Alliance, a move that would thrust Elisaria's internal affairs into the spotlight of international scrutiny. The consequences of such exposure are clear as day. The dignity of the imperial family would be shattered. their esteem trampled under the ridicule of foreign nations. Someone like Duke Elegy always has a card they refuse to reveal until necessary. They would mock Aldrich for abandoning Bronwyn and being ensnared by a concubine who had the audacity to bargain away a vital territory. With each passing moment, Aldrich's anger simmered. Given her different upbringing, he could understand Rose's struggles, but her inability to avoid causing trouble was incomprehensible to him. All she needed to do was live quietly, eat and sleep for a year, and she would have enjoyed a life of luxury. But now, her actions had jeopardized not just herself, but all of Elasaria. How could she be so reckless, so utterly devoid of sense? Not even the most foolish of fools would dare such an act, yet here they were, facing the unimaginable reality of her folly. It's madness. Standing up, Aldrich's hand moved decisively to the bell on his desk. The sharp ring echoed through the room, summoning Baron Lant. "Find Viscount Rothescue, now!" Viscount Rothescue's mind churned with unanswered questions as he roamed the streets, limping after his encounter with Oscar. His gaze followed the path of the fading night. The city, which had been bustling with life, now lay in a quiet lull, as if holding its breath. "The boy said that a girl suddenly ran out as if being chased, and those walking around her stopped to look at her like ghosts. It was strange. It was a horrific scene. Why would they do this to her?" He mulled over the account he'd heard from the little boy. The eerie scene painted in vivid detail. The memory gnawed at him, a sinister puzzle with missing pieces. Someone wanted the streets empty. But why? For what purpose? The tale of the impromptu celebration at the bar only deepened the mystery. A whole street lured away by the promise of revelry, leaving the stage clear for an unknown play to unfold. It's too calculated, too precise. Someone planned this, but who? His jaw tightened as frustration bubbled within him. With her youthful innocence and lack of enemies, Liliana didn't fit into this plot of malice and deception. Yet here he was, walking through a labyrinth of conspiracy, with her at its center. The Viscount couldn't help but feel he was missing a crucial piece of this puzzle. He reached for a pamphlet that lay on the ground as he read a startling headline. Viscount Rothescue's world seemed to crumble around him as he read. The article was ablaze with the revelation about the true parentage of Rose's child. This can't be happening. He shuffled through the articles, each headline screaming louder than the last, each story more damning. The city was abuzz with gossip and speculation. But for Viscount Rothescue, each whispered word was a dagger to his heart. Alan, why? Why now? I never mentioned his name, even to Bronwyn's brother, when that bastard cut my ear off. His mind raced with the implications. The king, long deceived, now faced a public humiliation beyond measure. And at the heart of it all was his son, Alan, a name he had fiercely protected even in his darkest hours. Could any of my so-called allies help me now? Or have I become too toxic even for them? Despair gnawed at him. The connections he had forged over the years and the alliances he had nurtured seemed fragile now, ready to shatter at the slightest touch. A knight approached him.
Viscount Rothescue, His Majesty the King has summoned you, immediately.
The king is looking for me?
The atmosphere in the king's office was tense. The air was thick with unspoken accusations and underlying rage. Viscount Rothescue, acutely aware of the gravity of the situation, stood rigidly, his head bowed in an act of subservience.
Your Majesty, I came as soon as I was summoned.
Aldrich sat imposingly behind his desk and regarded the Viscount with a gaze as sharp as steel. 1,000 unasked questions and accusations lingered. Viscount Rothescue, are you aware of the scandal that plagues the palace?
Yes, Your Majesty, I am aware.
This scandal involves your family directly.
I assure you, Your Majesty, I had no part in...
Your assurances mean nothing now. The facts speak for themselves. Nonetheless, I am going to tell you where your daughter is.
What?
Rose kidnapped her and sold her into slavery. I was able to rescue your daughter and protect her, as Rose would try to kill her if she knew your daughter was safe. Viscount Rothescue's heart sank. He knew arguing was futile. There was no other reason he would be telling him this. He questioned if he would be leaving this room alive.
Rose, how could she?
Enough. Your family's actions have disgraced Elisaria time and time again. The Viscount stood helplessly, his mind racing for a way to salvage the situation. But in the face of the king's wrath, he found himself powerless.
What do you mean, Your Majesty? My son and I, we have done nothing against the imperial family.
Aldrich's eyes were unyielding, reflecting no sympathy. Your denials change nothing. The facts are clear. Your bloodline has sullied the imperial lineage.
But Your Majesty, there must be some misunderstanding. We have always served loyally.
The air in the room grew colder, as if the walls were closing in on the Viscount. His mind raced for a solution, a way out of this dire predicament, but found none.
Please, Your Majesty, grant us mercy. We are but humble servants of Elisaria.
Mercy for deceit and betrayal. There is no mercy for those who have wronged the crown in such a manner. I can assure you that you and your son will die for deceiving the imperial family. But I will give you a chance to save the other two. Viscount Rothescue's heart sank. The finality in Aldrich's voice left no room for argument. He knew then that his fate and that of his son was sealed. Viscount Rothescue was anxiously walking down a corridor of the imperial palace. No doubt, when Aldrich had asked him if he wanted to save the other two, Liliana must have been one of them, since he told him where she was. But he did not know who the other was. He hoped that Liliana and his wife were the two people the king would allow him to save. He also wanted to save Alan, even if he had to give his life in return. But Alan was too embroiled in this matter. There was nothing he could do for Alan. He at least wanted Liliana and his wife to live. Viscount Rothescue was so terrified of death that his one strong leg became weak, and he squatted down in the corridor. At that moment, he heard a voice that seemed kind above him. However, it hid traces of mockery. When he looked up, he saw Baron Lant looking down at him.
You must be having fun watching us all suffer, bastard.
Yes, fun. Watching the high and mighty brought low, witnessing justice unfolding in the most poetic ways.
Do you find amusement in my suffering?
Not your suffering precisely, Viscount. And don't be so angry. You were smart enough to help Rose take down Bronwyn, so I'm confident you'll also overcome this obstacle.
You speak as if you're above it all. How could I have taken Bronwyn down? What do you believe I have done?
You and I are not close, so I don't know exactly what you did.
This is no game. Lives are at stake.
Everything in life is a game, Viscount. The sooner you realize that, the better. But alas, it seems your time to play has run out. I look forward to seeing what you'll do from this point on.
What do you expect me to do?
Henry and I sat on our bed, and I was astounded that he would read this material to our unborn child. This is not how we should be raising them. When I looked at him, with my head cocked, an awkward smile appeared on his stiff face. Henry unsteadily shifted backward on the bed, with a book still in his arms. The moment he reached the edge of the bed, he slowly stood up and backed toward the door. Anyone could tell that he wanted to run away. A war novel? Really, Henry? You are reading this aloud to our baby?
It's for developing strong character.
Strong character? By recounting tales of blood and conquest? A child needs stories of courage and kindness, not violence. Although he remained calm, he still walked towards the door. You will not run away from this conversation. Henry sighed and turned back to face me. He slowly walked over to the bed and kneeled by my side. His face was mere inches away. His charm hypnotizes me, and he knows this. Not this time. Step back. You will not have me fall into your eyes this time. Henry smiled as he stepped back. This is serious. Give me the book.
But I thought it would instill bravery and strength. I've heard this is how we instill values as they grow.
Do you expect to raise a king of war? There's more to strength than just physical prowess. There's kindness, intelligence, compassion. I read children's books to our unborn child to keep their thoughts pure. Do you intend to poison our baby's mind while I sleep?
I had a dream of a baby bird. The baby bird was vulnerable and helpless. Its parents were nowhere around. It was defenseless in this cruel world. I see our child in that baby bird, and I cannot stand to see our child in danger. We have to teach them early on.
Did Henry have a vision? Was there something to this? Henry, our little bird will be adorable, obedient, strong.
Not if we don't instill this.
I understand wanting our child to be brave. You must omit sections of this story when reading a war novel. The descriptions of blood and violence are too harsh. Your words will become real. Please listen to me. Henry relented. My emotions for protecting my child overwhelmed me. I could feel the ground beneath me begin to freeze. As I breathed, the air turned to frost in front of me. I did not want to talk about my powers. Not now.
Shouldn't our child know what war means? They will be royal. They must understand the implications of war.
Then we will teach our child about war as they grow up. As I pointed at the door, frost shot out of my fingers. The room grew colder. Henry now caught on to what was happening.
My queen, are you...
Get out! Henry stood to leave, and he could tell my emotions were getting the best of me. This scared him. He stopped at the door and turned to me.
If we are to educate our child in the womb, this is education as well. I do not mean to upset. If we are to teach about right and wrong, we must also teach punishment. This includes his father. I'm sorry.
Haxon sat outside of the bedroom as Henry exited after his conversation with the Queen. He instantly noticed the disappointment on Henry's face.
His Majesty looks very depressed. Is everything okay with the Queen? She didn't send you to the doghouse now, did she?
Although Henry's glare at Haxon would usually be frightful, coming from the king, Haxon was unfazed.
No matter how hard you glare at me, you know it to be true.
Haxon, sometimes I really despise you.
And you as well, Your Majesty.
Henry sat down next to Haxon as he worked.
I read the book you gave me while Bronwyn was sleeping. She woke up during some more violent moments.
Oh, Henry. Of course she would be upset. Parents have an urge to protect their children. There is also so little you can do. This should be a lesson for you. Do not teach out of fear, because that is what your child will learn.
Haxon and Henry both looked down the hall. Old Duke Kerridge was walking through the imperial palace, mumbling under his breath. They could vaguely hear what he was saying.
My daughter lay dead, and those bastards!
After he left the imperial palace, Viscount Rothescue hurried on horseback to a location indicated by Aldrich. Whenever his horse got tired, he stopped at the nearest town and bought the best horse to continue his journey as fast as possible. He wanted to hurry to save his daughter before Aldrich changed his mind. His destination was on the outskirts of Elisaria. After riding for several days, he arrived at a small but beautiful mansion. It was the kind of villa that nobles of simple taste might use, so he felt relieved.
At least he didn't lock my daughter in awful conditions.
3 men who appeared to be guards stood in front of the mansion. As soon as Viscount Rothescue approached, they pointed their spears at him. Rothescue raised his hands to show he had no weapons and spoke to the guards.
Please, I have come for my daughter on orders from the king.
We have no orders. You are not welcome here.
Rothescue's face fell. Had he come all this way to be turned away? At that moment, her sweet voice called to him.
Father!
Rothescue opened his arm to embrace his little girl. Tears welled in his eyes.
Oh, Liliana, I'm so happy to see you.
How did you get here? Wait, what was going on?
Do you know?
That Rose had tried to kill me? Yes, it was His Majesty that saved me. I don't know what would have happened to me.
She wanted to tie up loose ends so that no one knew she was a slave. She is truly evil.
We must retaliate. She will not stop.
Liliana, there's something you should know. Your father, he is an evil man.
What? No. Why do you say that?
I have played my hand to protect you and your brother. Rose was the reason we were able to move to Elisaria. I had willed it. Now Aldrich believes that Alan is the child's father.
Isidore?
No, Princess Beatrice. I don't know if it is true, but our fates are sealed. Aldrich knows Rose is attempting to bring him down, and he is ensuring she will go down with him. He could have had us hung the moment he told us. He showed us mercy by allowing you and your mother to live.
No, I will go to the king. I will change this.
You can't! Do you want you and your mother to die? Listen to me. Your father ventured out for our family and failed in the attempt. I'll take responsibility for that. So don't blame anyone. Go back, take care of your mother, and take care of the estate. It's all yours and your mother's. Go back immediately. I'll get rid of the mansion here as soon as possible and send you the money, so pack your things and don't waste a second. Do you understand?
Liliana looked down in tears and broke down in her father's arms.
I've tried so hard to get my revenge on Rose, to protect our family. Father, I know you. You are not an evil man. You have done what you could to protect us. How could this happen?
When someone asks you about your father and brother, say that you had a terrible father and brother, that you didn't get along with us. Even communication with us wasn't good. Do you understand?
I will not. This cannot be true. I do not believe it. You know Alan. He is a simpleton, and he may be enamored with Rose, but he would not. No, he couldn't have gotten her pregnant. She wants nothing to do with him. This is a trick. You know this. She is doing this to tie up her loose ends. Don't you see?
Upon considering this, Rothescue knew his daughter could be right. If he were going to hell, he would bring Rose with him.
Nadine had gone on holiday to a beautiful place with Viscount Langdale for a few days. She returned with her hands full of gifts and a bright glow illuminating her face. Laura was amazed when she saw Nadine, who laughed and gave gifts to each of my ladies-in-waiting. After much laughter and chatter, I asked my ladies-in-waiting to leave because I wanted to talk to Nadine alone. Nadine, I'm so happy you've come. I do have something important I'd like to ask you. It's about Marquis Clifford. When I mentioned the Marquis to Nadine, her eyes grew wide. She smiled as I told her about the Duke's request. I think the Duke made the request to your Majesty as an excuse to have a conversation with you alone. Clifford doesn't seem like someone who would talk about these things with his father. That's a relief. I do appreciate your guidance, as always. This seems to be a time of hard-fought peace, and I hope it will last. At that moment, Countess Julia approached us, caring as ever. Your Majesty, wouldn't it be better if you took a nap? You took a walk earlier and just met with Lady Nadine. You must be exhausted. You must be careful. I had gone to bed, as Julia instructed. She was right, but 10 minutes into a nap, there was a knock at the door. While pregnant, Henry made the palace aware no one was to interrupt my sleep. This must be important. All my ladies-in-waiting were at the door. They had bizarre, concerned expressions. Has something happened? What's going on? Is Henry all right? Your Majesty, you must see a report that's just come to us. Countess Julia handed me a pamphlet. I opened the message. It was from Elisaria. What news could possibly... And then I read it. Princess B. My ladies-in-waiting and I gathered in my room. They had interrupted a nap to bring me the news just reported that the Princess of Elisaria is not Aldrich's. Is this some kind of joke? The ladies-in-waiting all frantically began to answer at the same time. They spoke over each other. I'll read it myself, it'll be quicker that way. The room grew silent. Although the article was written as objective, I knew it had the potential to include the journalist's personal feelings. I had to extract the actual relevant information from the article. It looks as if the article summarizes like this. 1. It is believed the temple has concluded the princess does not share blood with Aldrich. 2. Queen Rose had lived with another man before Aldrich, and had a child with this man. She was also married to him. The birth of the father of the princess appears to be Rose's first husband. And what has become of the princess? It appears that Aldrich had disposed of her. I had assumed Rose had a child before she became Aldrich's concubine, but the truth was covered up. How on earth did the truth surface? I had cursed at Aldrich and Rose, and hoped they wouldn't be happy. I never thought it would happen so soon. This journalist named Julian went as far as ridiculing Rose and contradicting her for openly mocking me for being remarried, when she had been remarried before. He even states that, unlike my circumstance, Rose's marriage was not recognized as legitimate in either relationship. Isn't the journalist putting himself at risk for speaking out publicly? Aldrich will seek retribution, won't he? The journalist must have known Aldrich would overlook it. If the story reached us in the Celestial Isles, it must have already spread like wildfire throughout Elisaria. Well, Elisaria must be lively. If only I could be a fly on the wall in the palace. So what happens now? Now I understood why my ladies-in-waiting had come in with such unusual expressions, especially Laura and Countess Julia. Unlike Matilda and Cedrica, who could fully enjoy the situation, Laura and Countess Julia were tied to Elisaria. Their families, memories, estates, and assets were all from Elisaria. After he belittled me for Rose's baby, it felt good that Aldrich was in this situation. But since I was born in Elisaria, seeing the imperial family become a mockery was awkward. Your Majesty, what will you do? It's certainly shocking, but what can I do? I have no desire to console Aldrich and say, I'm sorry that the daughter you thought you fathered is not actually your daughter. He would likely take offense. I could condemn Rose for her actions. All of this will seem like mockery coming from me. No, it's none of my business. If I were to speak out at all, it would look poorly. It's stronger to sit quietly and let them remain front and center.
There was another commotion in Elisaria. William and Martha reappeared as suddenly as they left, when they claimed to have found clues as to the whereabouts of their second daughter. When the Stormcloak couple reappeared, doubts about Rose's parentage intensified. People wanted the couple to take a paternity test with Rose at the temple.
We cannot trust Rose. She is full of lies. I don't trust that her supposed parents are her birth parents either.
There's no doubt she's a complete fraud.
As soon as William and Martha crossed the capital, they were arrested and imprisoned. It was still unclear whether Viscount and Viscountess Stormcloak were Rose's real parents, and whether Rose would be removed soon. Nothing had been decided yet. Everyone was baffled, since no one expected William and Martha to be imprisoned. People began to gossip about the cause. People were even more confused when it became known what they were accused of: attempted murder of a court major's assistant. They didn't understand why a court major's assistant had anything to do with them. However, the nobles quickly found the connection.
Do they mean the assistant to the court mage residing in the southern palace?
The one rumoured to be His Majesty's concubine?
My goodness, so it's true. I thought it had been a complete misunderstanding this whole time. She had seemed like she was working so hard as an assistant. The king has another concubine.
In an instant, several rumours arose. Some nobles believed that William and Martha had attacked Schuyler to protect the position of their daughter Rose. Others thought that Rose herself had asked them to murder Schuyler. In Aldrich's office, he smiled coldly at Baron Lant upon hearing the second rumour.
They absolutely aren't Rose's real parents. They did not raise her or feel any genuine connection. They wouldn't hesitate an instant to blame Rose.
So, Rose is behind that incident?
Does it matter in the slightest?
Aldrich's anger peaked. Accepting the princess was not of his blood. He had been taught not to show his emotions, so at first glance he seemed unaffected by the current dire situation. But he wasn't. He couldn't take it anymore. The problems with Duke Elegy caused his anger to grow even more. Aldrich planned to persuade Duke Elegy and threaten him if it didn't work out. However, that same day, Duke Elegy disclosed everything to the press. The newspapers published the news about the promissory notes and the port, and public opinion about Rose became extremely hostile. After that, people who had only shown support for Aldrich began criticizing him because he let Rose do whatever she wanted. In response, Aldrich rushed the trial of William and Martha.
Proceed with the trial as soon as possible. The public will want justice for the murder of Schuyler.
Yes, Your Majesty.
I want the results of the investigation. They will not escape punishment.
Aldrich spoke coldly, sat on his chair, drew his sword, and began wiping the blade with a dry towel. His hand movements were so careless that it seemed, at any moment, he would cut himself with the blade. Baron Lant looked at Aldrich with concern.
Your Majesty, there is one other matter.
What?
Viscountess Amelia. She has told me that the princess is ill.
That who is ill?
Aldrich stopped moving. His eyes narrowed briefly, though it was hard to tell because of his hair. Baron Lant, who had shown some sympathy for the innocent baby, was unwilling to bear Aldrich's wrath for caring for Rose's second child.
Pardon me, Your Majesty. I had meant that public image perception would be extreme if something happened to the child.
Aldrich wiped the blood off of his sword. Baron Lant began questioning where it came from. He also wondered what the king was thinking. At the insinuation of something happening to the child, was he considering killing her himself?
Find out how ill the baby is. Send for the palace doctor.
Yes, Your Majesty.
When Aldrich was alone, he lowered his sword. While he had believed the baby wasn't his, Beatrice held a piece of his heart. The thought of something terrible happening to her had pained him as if she was his daughter. Problems continued to arise, increasing Aldrich's anger like an iron ball falling down a steep slope. The next day, the Stormcloak's trial began, but their testimony was unexpected.
She is our daughter. She is not capable of such heinous crimes. Silence! How can you defend such actions? It is absurd, inhumane.
Aldrich smiled helplessly and tightly squeezed the armrests of his throne. Since the Celestial Isles had provided evidence that William and Martha had attempted to murder Schuyler and demanded severe punishment, the couple would be unable to avoid punishment. With this problematic situation, Aldrich thought they would naturally blame Rose, even if she were not involved. Aldrich knew that Rose was a runaway slave, and although he had not brought the couple forward, he knew that they were not Rose's real parents. In some cases, adoptive parents could develop a bond with a child similar to that of birth parents. However, William and Martha had not raised Rose, and they had known each other for such a short time that they were unlikely to have formed such a bond. But at the public trial, the couple firmly denied that Rose had anything to do with their crime, despite people's doubts. It was undoubtedly a brave act. Not even all real parents would do this in the face of severe punishment. Because of this, people began to whisper that Rose seemed to be their actual daughter. Aldrich and Baron Lant sat in Aldrich's office, discussing their next move.
What will you do, Your Majesty? I cannot arbitrarily blame her for this. It will cause people to question the veracity of her other crimes. We need to maintain the current public opinion.
When Aldrich decided to move on, an unexpected guest intervened.
Well, well, I hadn't expected to see you here so soon.
William and Martha, sitting against a wall inside a cell, suddenly raised their heads when they heard a man's voice. The man approached the cell. It was Viscount Rothescue. The couple's expression became rigid when they saw his unpleasant face. Rose used to say a lot of bad things about Rothescue. Naturally, the Stormcloaks had a bad impression of him. How dare he approach them now that their pride was wounded and they were miserable?
And what do you want?
Rothescue laughed hard.
You stupid, pathetic bastards!
What are you doing here? Did you come to mock our situation? If so, you've come to the wrong place. We didn't even try to kill that bitch. And even if we were framed with false evidence, we wouldn't be severely punished for the attempted murder of a commoner.
On the contrary, you dared to introduce your blood into the imperial family, which is equivalent to conspiring to usurp the throne. Shouldn't you worry about your neck first? Would this have happened if I had cracked down on Alan instead of trying to find Liliana?
After asking Liliana to return to the estate, he went to the mansion in the capital to find out what had happened while he was searching for Liliana. He learned that Alan had taken Isidore to the imperial palace to meet with Aldrich and then with Rose. It was like oil in one hand and fire in the other. As much as it bothered him that the couple in front of him blamed him for their circumstance, Viscount Rothescue reluctantly acknowledged it.
Yes, that's right. I'll die to protect my family. But what about you? Didn't you try to kill your real daughter for the sake of a fake daughter you didn't even raise? Oh, what a wonderful moment. You won't even be able to rest in peace when you die.
William and Martha were shocked by Viscount Rothescue's mention of their real daughter. Martha asked him directly,
How dare you bring up our daughter? Are you just here to taunt us?
Since they had failed to find the two daughters they were separated from, they became attached to their fake daughter, Rose. Although others did not understand the affection they felt for her, since they had met her less than a year ago, it was strong enough that the couple decided not to blame her unfairly. However, they were perplexed to hear about their real daughter. Viscount Rothescue smirked at them.
Well, indeed. Since you visit Rose so often, you must know, don't you?
Speak of what you know this instant.
Oh, my. Well, it pains me to tell you that it seems your fake daughter, that you sit here trying to protect, has deliberately hidden something from you both.
What are you... No. It can't be. No.
Who is our daughter? Tell us at once!
It was clear they knew. They were doing whatever they could not to face the truth. The horrible, awful truth.
Yes, I see. Like the act you put on as Rose's parents, you also play the part of ignorance. Yet I see behind the curtain that you know the truth. Allow me to pull this facade down. Schuyler is your daughter. Schuyler, His Majesty's second concubine.
The air was sucked out of the room. The stormcloaks went white. Martha covered her face with both hands. Her body trembled.
No. It's not true. It cannot be true. It is a lie. We have no reason to believe a snake like you.
But of course you wouldn't, nor shouldn't take my word for truth. I wouldn't if I were in your disgusting shoes. So, I have brought you a present.
Viscount Rothescue anticipated their reaction, so he smiled bitterly and handed over the orphanage documents he had brought along to clear up their doubts.
I went to the temple and was told that a proper assessment could not be done if the parties involved didn't show up. I had let them know you were unavailable, as you are here, rotting. But given the evidence, it's very, very likely that Schuyler is your long-lost daughter.
William crumbled the document in his hand and shouted,
Why? Why would you tell us now? You have a daughter. You must know what this would be like.
I do have a daughter. And while I sympathize with you, Rose had tried to have my daughter killed. So I believe you just may be able to sympathize with me. I thought you two deserved to know the truth before your fates were sealed. Now I must go. I have much to do.
As he walked up the stairs, he heard heartbroken cries in the distance. He paused for a moment and smiled.
You must leave now.
The guard rushed him out. Rothescue had put a large red jewel in his hand before exiting. Unbeknownst to both of them, Aldrich watched intently from the shadows. Viscount Rothescue went straight to the capital to exchange his jewels for cash. Once this was done, he put the cash into several ordinary-looking bags. Then he put the bags in a simple wooden box, and lastly, he sealed the box with nails. He would send all the cash to his estate. While Liliana was a smart girl and running the estate wasn't very difficult, she had no experience and had not learned how to govern. So she would surely make some mistakes. It would take a lot of money to cover those mistakes. After Viscount Rothescue completed the preparations to help his daughter and wife, he proudly walked back to his mansion. But the feeling quickly faded. Within a few steps, tears began to fall down his cheeks. In fact, he was so scared that he wanted to run away. However, the king had been benevolent by giving him time to organize his assets and save both his daughter and his wife. He knew that if he tried to abuse Aldrich's benevolence, not only Rothescue and Alan would be executed, but the entire family would suffer the same fate. He had no choice but to go ahead despite his fear. When Rothescue arrived at the mansion, a black carriage was already waiting in the center of the garden. The mansion had lost its splendor and looked desolate, as it no longer had any employees. The butler, who was waiting in front of the carriage, came over and said sadly,
"My master, I have been honored to serve you, and it has been an honor having you by our side. Please, give this to my wife."
Viscount Rothescue handed a sealed box to the trusted butler.
"Master, wouldn't it be better if you gave it to her yourself?"
The butler held back tears. He had been by Viscount Rothescue's side since he was very young, so he cared more for Rothescue than his children. Although Viscount Rothescue was now a middle-aged man, the butler still thought of him like a little brother he had to look after. If only one person in the family could survive, he wanted it to be Viscount Rothescue.
There is no chance to save me after the scandal with Alan. I trust you.
Rothescue pulled out a small bag of money.
This is for Liliana. Do not give it to her even if she asks for it. With this, you will be able to live quietly. Now, where is Alan?
The butler wiped his tears.
"The king's knights had fetched him. I will serve you until the end, master."
This is the end. You must leave this instant.
When the butler reluctantly climbed into the coachman's seat, Viscount Rothescue spurred the horses. As he watched the carriage drive away, Rothescue's eyes filled with tears. He remembered a time when he became angry because his only successor was too incapable, and his then healthy wife defended her son. Alan was still little back then, and Liliana had not yet been born. He remembered his weakened wife sitting in a rocking chair, singing to little Liliana in her arms. He remembered his emaciated wife lying on the bed. She was breathing hard, but she squeezed it as hard as she could whenever he took her hand. Disconsolate, Viscount Rothescue entered the mansion. Suddenly, he wondered what had happened to Isidore, but quickly put the matter aside, because he didn't care whether the boy lived or died.
Henry and I sat comfortably in the garden, admiring the reddish sunset. Henry approached and put his hand on my back. His warmth soothed me.
What are you thinking about, my love? I hope you have forgiven me for my poor choice of reading.
I smiled and stroked his cheek with my hand. He was so beautiful. I couldn't stay mad at him, ever. I apologize for my outburst. I approve of your readings. I want our child to know your voice, and know you are their father. I would just like you to omit the violent parts. My distress comes more from Elisaria.
Wouldn't the news of the princess give you some sense of redemption?
I have mixed feelings. It's not necessarily happy news, but you're right, it is satisfying. Aldrich had boasted of his love with Rose, and I had witnessed how someone changes when love arises. Now I was witnessing how someone changes when love ends. Of course, if the article was true, Rose had done so many wrongs that even love couldn't cover them up. But now that Aldrich was pulling away from Rose, the man who falsely accused my brother for Rose's sake, and who believed her no matter what I said, it made me feel strange. I wonder if my love with Henry could end like this. But I quickly dismissed that thought. Our love had just begun. There was no need to talk about the end. Besides, our love didn't have to end like Aldrich's. Our love could be long-lasting like my parents'. I shook my head. Then I pulled Henry by the neck and kissed his lips. It was thrilling to hear him moan.
Well, well. Violence isn't okay. Are we setting the right example now?
I cupped his bulge in my hands, gently caressing him. I could feel him grow. Pleasure over violence, my love.
William and Martha were sitting against the wall of their cell in shock. They looked haggard, as if their soul had left their body. William scratched the cold stone floor with his fingernails, while his wife tugged at her hair. Both had sunken eyes and pale complexions, to the point that they looked like vagabonds rather than a noble married couple. The guard walked past them.
You two, why are you like this? Have you gone mad so soon?
Is it true?
Is what true?
Was that mage our daughter?
The guard walked away, not wanting to get involved.
I don't know. We've never had direct contact with that man. Why would he want to lie to us?
The evidence. It's inconclusive, it's not absolute.
Martha, Skylar resembles us. You must have thought about this. Her hair is the same color as yours. Her eyes are like mine. We were told she was a terrible person through Rose, and we were tricked.
That's right. She was so smart and feisty. I should have seen it. William, how do we make this right? She is our daughter.
I don't think we can, Martha. Not now.
We can't leave things as it is. She would want to know. We must find a way.
Just then, footsteps echoed down the prison stairs. The couple stopped talking and waited to see who was coming. A ball of fire illuminated the figure's path. As the figure approached, the fire extinguished in the major's hand. It was Skylar. William and Martha stood in the dimly lit room, their faces etched with guilt. Skylar, shrouded in darkness, had confronted them with a haunting calmness.
I am so curious. What about me upset you so much that you tried to kill me? Miss Skylar, it was a mistake. We had been mean to you, but we had no connection to the attempt to kill you, we swear. I'm sure the judge will believe that.
Skylar took a step back, her gaze piercing through the couple. She laughed casually, a sinister undertone laced in her voice.
It is said that children are a reflection of their parents.
Skylar didn't bother to turn back as she walked towards the front door, leaving the couple in the shadows, their expressions stiffening. She spoke into the wind with one hand on the door, not giving the couple the honor of her gaze. But she was not done with them. Their expressions were stiff with fear and guilt, but Schuyler couldn't see that. And would it have mattered? Schuyler had marked them as her enemies. Their apologetic expressions would not affect that.
When I compare you to Rose, that relation fits perfectly. Even though she grew up separated from you, your coldness and cruelty know no bounds. Your other daughter must be just as despicable as the three of you.
Tears welled in their eyes. William wanted to speak, but the truth was lodged in his throat. Their hearts fluttered as Schuyler's footsteps echoed on the stone steps outside their door. The door slammed shut, and they collapsed on the floor, consumed by grief. After a while, Martha clenched her fists, her bitterness palpable. Her sadness had turned sour.
We won't tell her we're her parents.
William looked surprised as his wife crossed her arms across her chest.
She hates us deeply. How could we tell her that we were her parents? If she knew, it would only hurt her to remember what we had done to her.
You're right, my wife.
Suddenly, William punched the wall with determination.
I can agree with you and hide the truth from Schuyler, but there is another person who knows the truth. Rose. It is because of her that we treated Schuyler the way we did. A ruse by that bitch to push our real daughter away.
That's right. If Rose got her way, she would try to hurt our daughter over and over again. She uses us to her advantage, and Schuyler's true identity can only hurt her.
Yes, Rose might have worsened the carriage incident. Thankfully, Schuyler survived. I don't know what I would have done if something had happened.
Their statements at the trial were factual. They had despised Schuyler, but never intended to take her life. They exchanged cold glances, realizing the weight of Rose's influence.
We have to do whatever it takes to remove Rose from Schuyler's life, so that she doesn't hurt her again.
But she is the queen.
Indeed, we cannot get her adequately punished through any court of law. Martha, we will have our revenge.
The atmosphere in the drawing room was tense after Henry made an abrupt declaration regarding testing martial arts skills among the noble children, yet to grace high society. I found myself utterly perplexed by his intentions. Noble families had their private tutors. Why, then, did Henry deem it necessary to interfere? In conversation with my ladies-in-waiting, Matilda speculated what might have influenced Henry's point of view. Could it be due to the imminent arrival of the baby? Maybe. Why do you think that? He wants the royal child to keep up with the other noble kids. I reckon he's doing this to taunt old Duke Kerridge. This statement from Julia had me whip my head around towards her. But before I could question her, Cedrica supported her. 2 children in a carriage family technically qualify but weren't invited to participate. Henry did go so far as to wear the necklace Aldrich got for me, just to upset him. I supposed to myself that Julia and Cedrica were likely right. Henry was not above taunting other nobles and leaders. But I could not be honest about this opinion of Henry, so I supported Matilda. It's probably because of the baby. I pretended I didn't see my ladies-in-waiting look at each other with concern, and some even with pity. But before they could respond, an unexpected guest arrived. We all looked up at Princess Charlotte, standing in my doorway behind Cedrica, her rival for Oscar's love, unknowingly behind her. Do I have cake on my nose again? Why are you all looking at me? Charlotte was donning a form-fitting, cream-coloured dress and glasses. She looked not just beautiful, but sophisticated. How have you been, Your Majesty? Her voice was smooth like chocolate, I'm well, Charlotte. Have you been enjoying your time here? I hope you feel at home. I couldn't take my eyes off Cedrica as I spoke. She was looking at the floor somberly, examining a greyish stain on her shoe. Once Princess Charlotte left, Cedrica retreated with flushed cheeks. There was no question how she felt about Oscar any longer. It was just ensuring she wasn't too upset whenever Charlotte was around. The thought remained on my mind until later that night, when Henry noticed that I was preoccupied.
Queen, are you worried about something?
Not worried, exactly. I was about to dismiss the conversation, but remembered Henry's reputation before marriage. This man's name was rarely uttered without using the word playboy in the same sentence. I knew that was more in reputation than behaviour, but he must have learned something while playing that role. I hesitated, but curiosity got the better of me. Henry, do you know much about romantic relationships? He quickly stuck his fork in his mouth and nodded.
Somewhat.
You must know a little.
You're the only woman in my life, if that's what you're implying.
I know that. But you were a bachelor for so long, you must know a little about navigating the world of playboys. How do you play the game, so to speak?
Easy. I have fun.
I entered the conversation with a playful spirit, but it was beginning to intrigue me. You have fun?
Well, you can't play the game without having fun. Inviting people into the game when you're enjoying yourself is much easier.
Suddenly, I wanted to inquire more about his past, but I figured it was worth picking my battles. I was too distracted by Cedrica and Oscar at the moment, anyway. I'm not asking about your past. I want to know your opinion on someone else's romantic situation.
My experience won't translate to everyone else. It is being comfortable inside your skin.
He did have experience here. His confidence was so attractive. Then I realized I had never been comfortable inside my own skin. I don't think I've ever been comfortable like that.
What?
His eyes widened, as if he didn't understand what he had just heard. I raised my spoon to my lips hastily, and pretended to eat with as much focus as Henry.
Haxon entered Henry's office the next morning, ready to take on the day, but his eyes glazed when he saw Henry holding a bottle of rum.
I am so lucky. My queen is sweet. My queen, my queen, my queen.
Dear God, cousin, it's a bit early to be celebrating. Will you stop?
Ah, Haxon, live a little.
Why are you acting like such a fool so early in the morning?
I will be a father soon, Haxon. I won't be able to do this for long.
Does that give you a reason to... Never mind.
But Henry kept swigging from the rum bottle, and Haxon decided to get started on his work elsewhere.
The customary practice dictated the selection of a nanny from the ladies-in-waiting. However, my circumstances in the Celestial Isles differed, with few ladies-in-waiting, and Countess Julia being the sole married one. Yet Countess Julia was ill-suited for the role. Her Elisarian background and position as the head lady-in-waiting made her an inappropriate choice. Since my child would likely be the successor, concerns lingered about Elisaria's potential influence. Eventually, we decided to convene with experienced noblewomen to discuss the critical matter of selecting a nanny. So under the pretense of wine and conversation, I summoned 6 nearby noblewomen. They had recently been amicable, and our discussions naturally traversed various subjects, including the weather, Elisario controversies, and the latest happenings in high society. The conversation, however, smoothly shifted to the Carriage family. Your Majesty, by the way, were you aware that old Duke Carriage expelled his son, daughter-in-law, and grandchildren from the family mansion? I did not. Caught off guard by the unexpected news, I subtly shook my head in disbelief, prompting the noblewomen to share the scandalous details. Your Majesty, Marquis Carriage inherited only the title, not the wealth. All his riches now belong to the late Catherine. The noblewomen divulged the intriguing information, revealing that Marquis Carriage had complained to the old Duke about his family being excluded from the King's invitation. So Henry orchestrated it to torment old Duke Carriage. As the discussion unfolded, sympathy emerged for Catherine, who had been remarkably generous to her family. I'm sorry, Your Majesty, but Catherine was too good to her family. They had always been close siblings, and even after becoming queen, Catherine continued to care for her family. Suddenly, thoughts of my brother crossed my mind. Would he change his priorities if he were to have his own family? If Oscar's family and I had a conflict, would my brother also choose his wife and children? What about me? Who should I choose if my brother and Henry were to have a conflict? Marquis Carriage intends to reclaim everything, even if it leads to a lawsuit. I expect there will be numerous issues within that family in the future. It was intriguing to hear about the rise and fall of others, yet the unpleasant realization lingered that my marriage to Henry had contributed to that family's downfall. Of course, it would be even more unpleasant if that family lived happily after what they did to me. In any case, I was ready to move on from the unpleasant conversation, so I decided to bring up the real conversation for the invitation. Becoming the nanny to the royal prince or princess was an honor, but it was a great responsibility, and required a significant time commitment that not everyone was ready for. As we chatted, some noblewomen recommended others, some expressed their opinions on parenting methods, and some asked about the position details. But the conversation took a strange turn when I mentioned who I was meeting with the following day. And what of Lady Eleanor? Your Majesty. What's wrong? Lady Eleanor was the concubine of the former king.